Hello and welcome back to Champions and Beyond. In today's video we're going to have a look at what you receive as far as the aspect cards go in the Miss Marvel Hero Pack. We're going to do this video a little bit differently than my previous videos in this series. Please, if you end up sticking around and if you have watched any of my other videos within this series, and if you haven't, then please feel free to go and watch them. But please give me a comment down below on whether or not you like this layout for the video, or if you prefer the way that I used to do them with the actual cards on the table rather than looking at them via Hall of Heroes is what I'm going to be using. So I'll fire up Hall of Heroes and we'll take a look at the aspect cards, the deck building cards you receive when you buy the Miss Marvel Hero Pack. Okay, so we're on Hall of Heroes and we're looking at the Miss Marvel Hero Pack. She was released on December the 20th, 2019, nearly 5 years ago. It's crazy to think the game's been going that long, but she was the last of the 3-pack wave that came out at this time, along with Green Goblin and Captain America, as the first set of expansions after the core set was released. And for a long time, whenever anybody asked, and we're talking maybe 2 years at this point, for a long time, whenever anyone asked, what pack should I get for purely for deck building cards, Miss Marvel was always high up on the recommendation list. She came with some cards that were staple cards for most decks for a long time when the game was quite new, when the card pool was quite small. So let's have a look at what she came with. Now, a lot of those cards are now, they have received reprints in later packs, so nowadays maybe not quite as impactful as an early purchase, but still a great hero pack. She is a lot of fun. We will go over her signature cards and everything in a later series of videos, like I've said in all of these what's in the box series. But the first aspect card she came with was Nova, Sam Alexander, as an ally. 4 costs, so quite expensive. 1 thwart, not the greatest. 2 attack, not terrible. Only 3 life. He came with an interrupt, so he was champion traded. Miss Marvel herself was champion traded. I know definitely I got caught out very early on, thinking that all the characters were Avengers, and I definitely played her as if she was an Avenger the first time I played her, long time ago, back when the game was very new. But yeah, champion traded. It came with this interrupt. When an enemy initiates an attack against you, spend a lightning resource and deal 2 damage, to that enemy. So this was a great way to try and damage characters that had retaliate, because this isn't actually an attack. So if you do that, you ignore the retaliate. And I played a challenge once, and it was all about building up the minions in Zola, and then basically get a minion to be more powerful than Zola was with attachments, and then try and take them both out. And Nova was a big help in that one, because being able to ping off that 2 damage and just knock both Zola and a minion that had, I can't remember what he went up to, was it Retaliate 3? Maybe Retaliate 2. Just ping him down constantly was a massive help in being able to complete that challenge. So expensive, not great stats, but definitely had a place, and definitely still does have a place if you want to build kind of that niche deck. She then came with 2 copies, I believe, of Get Behind Me. Now, Get Behind Me was a reprint from the core set. I did speak about that in the core set video, so if you want to listen to my thoughts, you can go to there. I'm not the greatest fan of this card, but there are definitely some decks that do benefit from this kind of effect. So, as I said, she came with 2 copies of that. Her first unique event, so 3 copies of this, was Preemptive Strike. Hero Interrupt Defense. When a boost card is turned face up while the villain attacks, cancel all boost icons on that card, then deal 1 damage to the villain for each boost icon cancelled this way. Now, back in the day, you were getting, a lot of the time, 2 maximum damage back on the villain. You were taking 2 less damage yourself, so there was some benefit there. As the rules have developed over the years, this now allows you to become the defender when in a multiplayer setting, when another player is being attacked. So, for example, if a villain is attacking 4, and we'll go over energy barrier in a little bit, but if you have an energy barrier out, a villain like Ebony Maw is attacking for 1 and flips a 3 boost icon against your friend across the table, you can Preemptive Strike, deal the 3 damage back to him. You become the defender because this has the defense keyword. You would then take the 1 damage and you ping that back with energy barrier. So essentially taking no damage. Being the defender, you can then trigger any cards that require you or gives you a bonus if you're the defender and takes no damage. You obviously can exhaust as well to provide that benefit, but this is, I still think, the only card in the game. There might be one in the Mutant Wave. Mutant Protectors might do it, but it's a very rare ability to be able to become the defender for another player without having to exhaust to do it. So, very interesting card. I actually don't think this has been reprinted anywhere else. So if you want to have that option, you do have to buy the Miss Marvel Hero Pack. As I said, there was 3 copies of Preemptive Strike. Next came Tackle. Now, another 3 cost event. Attack traded. Stun an enemy. If you paid for this card using a Fist resource, deal 3 damage to that enemy. Now, I have definitely played this wrong before. I always thought that you had to pay using only Fist resources. So there you go, every day's a learning day. This just makes it even better. So 3 cost is still a little bit expensive to use the card, but you get the stun, and potentially you get the damage as well. So quite early on, stun lock decks, especially in protection, were were seen as really overpowered. A lot of people played Stunlock decks, and this was almost a guaranteed way. You know, you get an extra 3 copies in your deck of a way to be able to reliably get that stun on the villain and just stop them attacking. As Steady and Stalwart has come in, this is a much less viable tactic, but against any enemy that doesn't have those keywords, it's still a very reasonable way and very powerful way to play. Playing with status cards and constantly affecting the enemy is always a powerful play within Marvel Champions. So again, 3 copies of that. Very under the curve for damage as a pure damage source, but it was that stun that you were really paying the premium for. So you then got a reprint. You got the Power of Protection, 2 copies of that. Now, again, I've just said about how expensive Nova is and how expensive Tackle are. This doubling the cost is just a very solid play within this pre-con deck. Now, the Power of Protection, all the power-ofs did come in the core set, so again, check out the core set video if you want to hear any other musings on it, but that was a pretty solid case. Next is Energy Barrier. Energy Barrier didn't get reprinted until all the way into the Sinister Motives wave, and it came with Penny Parker and SPDR. So for a long time, this was the only way to get Energy Barrier. It's an item, it's a tech. So characters like Iron Man that really like tech upgrades. Characters like eventually Rocket, when Rocket came out, that liked to tinker with a bit of tech. This was a great card, and still is a great card within Protection. Now, I briefly went over kind of the way it works using the Ebony Maw example. So it uses 3 reflection counters, so just general counters to go on it. Interrupt when you would take any amount of damage, remove 1 reflection counter from here, prevent 1 of that damage, and deal 1 damage to an enemy. So key things to remember with this: you cannot use more than 1 counter per attack. You don't exhaust the card, so if you receive 3 attacks in a single villain phase, you can use it 3 times in a single villain phase, and that could be the villain attack, a minion attack, and then the villain gets a second attack with a treachery card. The other thing to note is that this isn't unique, so you can have up to 3 copies of it out. So although 1 Energy Barrier can prevent 1 damage from an attack, if you have 3 out on the field, you can prevent 3 damage essentially 3 times. So very viable. It allows you to attack any enemy out there. So if you're facing against Ultron, you can take the Ultron attack and ping that damage on a drone to stop the drone attacking you, or the Badoon Assassin in the Band of Badoon encounter. That only has 1 life, so you can take the attack from the enemy, from the villain, and then take out the minion without having to take an attack from the minion. This also gets around Retaliate, so it's not an attack in itself. So any enemies that have Retaliate, the likes of MODOK, or MODOK as a minion, or Zola as an actual villain, any damage that you do with Energy Barrier, you don't have to take their Retaliate back on you. So very solid card. Very, very good. Still a staple in several protection builds. As I said before, Iron Man loves this. Getting the extra tech out there to be able to increase his hand size. Absolutely fantastic. So you came with the pack came with 3 copies of that. We then got the good boy himself. We got Lockjaw. Now Lockjaw, I do just want to briefly say this pack only came with 2 allies. Now I didn't realise there were so few allies in this pack until I've gone back and looked at it, which is really impressive. But Lockjaw himself was another really solid addition as an ally. 4 cost, 2 thwart, 2 attack, but he takes 2 consequential damage for each, and 4 health. Now he is an Inhuman, Inhuman traded. There's not a ton of love for that as we stand. And the reason that he is so good, so you think, oh, well, he can do 2 thwart or 2 attack, but he's only going to be able to do that twice before he goes back to your discard pile. 4 cost for 4 thwart or 4 cost for 4 attack. That's not amazing. However, his text box says you may play Lockjaw from your discard pile during your turn, paying his resource cost. So, providing he is in your discard pile, if you have a hand full of resources, or you have nothing good in your hand that you can play, all those heroes that have a 4-card hand size, they tend to struggle with threat removal. So if you draw up 4 cards and you think, well, I can't really do a lot with this, I've got Lockjaw in the discard pile, let's dump my hand, let's bring Lockjaw in, thwart 2 this turn, thwart 2 next turn, don't use them as a blocker, you're probably going to get more value to be able to keep the game going as one of those heroes, especially like Hulk early on that really struggled with the threat mitigation. If he just had a handful of cards and you didn't really have a lot else to do, you were going to punch, why not bring Lockjaw in, help get rid of 4 threat, help keep you in the game for that couple more turns that you need just to get the kill. Lockjaw was an ally that I didn't use a lot of for a long time. I definitely slept on him, but I do really see his value, and I've definitely used him in some builds that way in the years since. So we are onto the basic cards now. We finished with the protection cards. We next got reprints of Energy, Genius, and Strength. Again, check out the core set to see thoughts on that. We also got a reprint of Avengers Mansion. This is probably a reason why I definitely thought she was an Avenger early on, because I thought, well, why else would she have Avengers Mansion? Again, core set reprint, 4 cost, exhaust, draw a card. Card draw is king in card games, so fantastic card. Now this is another one of those staple cards, so it was in grey, you could use it in every single deck, and I know a lot of people that did, I know a lot of people that still do. I still use it in majority of my decks. I definitely don't use it in all decks anymore, but majority of the time it's going to be worth just chucking an endurance in, get that extra 3 hit points. Any 9 HP character, you are adding an extra third onto their hit point value. You're taking them from 9 to 12. It just gives that little bit more survivability within a hero. So 1 cost upgrade and you just get +3 hit points. You can only have maximum 1 per player, But again, you can play this under any player's control. So if you are playing as a very much support character, you can put 3 of these in your deck in a multiplayer game and hand them out to the other players at the table. Get their hit points up. It means that they don't have to put them in their own decks. They don't have to worry about paying for them themselves, which can be good because it can allow them to get some extra reliability on their own combos and that sort of thing. So staple card, this was great. It has been reprinted, I believe, twice within the mutant wave, but it took many years for them to give us a reprint of this, and it's well worth having within your collection. The next card we got was Enhanced Reflexes. So Enhanced Reflexes was a 2-cost upgrade. It was condition, used 3 energy counters. So again, just use the green tokens on it. You could exhaust Enhanced Reflexes and remove 1 energy counter to generate an energy resource. So this was great for the likes of Captain Marvel early on. You could put one of these out, and for 3 turns you could use your NG channel, NG rechannel ability, I think it was, where you heal 1 damage from yourself and draw a card after you spend an NG resource. You could use this for the likes of Thor, who like to use NG resources to pay for his lightning strike. You could use it for any character that wanted to use Nova. This would give you essentially 6 damage for 2 cost or 3 true cost using Nova. Now that does require a couple of bits to build. You have to get Nova out, you have to get this out, but that's pretty good damage return. As well as that, for any characters that rely on a single type of resource type, the likes of Hulk, who requires a lot of fist resources in his kit, having this and the enhanced awareness, which is the mental resource equivalent, in his deck, if you're coming up against a scenario that has a lot of attachments or a lot of nasty attachments on villains, that you have to spend certain resources to help get rid of them, if you don't, or if you can't afford the specific resource generators, if you don't have access to those, then this is a great way to be able to help you when you build for a scenario. Now, overall, it's probably not the greatest value. There are definitely better resource generators out there. But in certain situations and for certain characters, for certain builds, there is definitely a place for this card. So that was it for her pre-con. We then got to the back of the pack. And we got Concussive Blow was the Justice card. We've got 3 copies of this again. This worked very similar to the Tackle. It's pretty much exactly the same. It's an attack event, hero action attack. Confuse an enemy. If you paid for this card using a fist resource, deal 3 damage to that enemy. Now again, I've played this wrong. I've always thought it was pay with all fist resources. I think that is because of a card that came maybe in Hulk. I don't think it didn't come in this pack. Called Dropkick, that did require all fist resources. And I've always chucked all 3 of these kind of in the same bracket. So that's just me not reading the card properly. Well worth remembering that you only need to pay with 1 fist resource to get that damage. Again, early on, there wasn't a great amount of ways to confuse an enemy, and that was very powerful. So it definitely had its place at the time. They did provide a reprint of this in Psylocke, when she came with a load of new confuse archetype things for Justice. So they obviously still see the value in this card. But yeah, I think that was the first time it was reprinted, sort of way middle of the X-Men wave. So it took a long time to get more copies of Concussive Blow. As I say, 3 copies of that. We then had Morale Boost. Now, I don't think this has actually been reprinted anywhere else off the top of my head. But choose a hero. Until the end of that round, that hero gets +1 thwart, +1 attack, and +1 defense. Now, this is great for any heroes that can ready up. Later on, we'd look at Quicksilver. We've already discussed a little bit about Captain America's kit, but being able to get him the +1 thwart and +1 attack and be able to attack twice because of his readying mechanic. You know, any hero that's even playing defensively, there's so many readies in protection nowadays that just being able to do that multiple times has some great value. And again, it's more of a support card for your leadership player. But if your leadership player is the one playing support and handing bits out, I remember Brant from Step Into the Portal used to call it the Candy Man. So if you're going to play as the Candy Man and hand out all the goodies to your buddies at the table, this is great. If one of your buddies is taking a readying hero, you can just get so much value out of that 1 cost event. So again, 3 copies of that. We then got the 3 cost event Melee. Hero action, attack, deal 3 damage to an enemy, and deal 3 damage to another enemy. Now for Miss Marvel, early on, she also had her Embiggen, which she could add damage to the event. So she was doing, is Embiggen adding 4 on, I think? I'd have to go back and check. But she's doing like even more damage using this. And nowadays, much later on in Aggression, we did get several other cards that do a similar ability that add extra onto an attack like this. Providing there are 2 enemies out, you know, whether or not that's a multi-villain scenario, whether or not that's, you know, a minion heavy scenario that you're going to have minions out as well as the enemy. There is a place for it. Maybe not the greatest card, looking at the sort of pure value of it, although it was still a 3 cost event for 6 damage, which, you know, swinging web kick is a kind of a marker down for damage. That's a 3 cost for 8 damage, so this wasn't that far behind it, but it was always looked as it was always looked upon as being a bit expensive for what it was. But pure numbers wise, it didn't really fall that far behind sort of the top of the pack for Aggression events anyway. So we got 3 copies of that, and as I say, Miss Marvel made great use of it with her Embiggen being able to increase both sources of damage. The final card that we got in the back of the pack was Downtime. So this was another one that we didn't receive a reprint of until well into the sort of X-Men cycles. And again, this was definitely a staple card early on. If you had to flip down and heal, you only wanted to be doing it once. Again, play under any player's control. max 1 per player, and your alter ego gets +2 recovery. So, as I say, taking your 3 recovery hero to a 5 recovery, if you need to do that 1 flip down and recover during a game, you're going to get the extra benefit for it. You're going to have to do it less often if it's a longer game, if it's a multiplayer game. Later on, there was some interesting plays when there are a couple of cards that played off around about the Sinister Motives wave that basically played off what your recovery stat was. So, but it's very niche, and this one fell away as a staple card a lot sooner than the likes of Endurance. It is still a solid enough card. It's also a cheap upgrade to get onto the table in case you get caught off guard and you have to lose a card. You'd much rather lose this than your Avengers Mansion or your Endurance even, that could end up losing you the 3 hit points and killing you. So there's a place for it. It has been reprinted now, but it was a very solid card for the time. And then I believe that was it. It then goes into her obligation and her nemesis. So let's cancel that down. So that was the deck building cards within Miss Marvel and her hero pack. As I say, nowadays she has got a little bit outpaced. She definitely isn't one that you go, when somebody's asking, you go, you need to get the Miss Marvel hero pack because of the great cards that are in it. A lot of those great cards have now come in other packs, so she is still a very fun hero. She does have a good solid set of cards that come within her pack as deck building cards. So well worth picking up, in my opinion, if you want to get into the deck building side of the game. Her precon is maybe not the strongest straight out the box, but being able to mix those cards into other decks, and sort of with her mechanics and everything, she has some real good fun in pretty much any aspect, I think, nowadays. And since there's been more support for the champion trait, it's just made her better than ever before. So thank you very much for watching. As I said before, let me know what you think to this style of video and which you prefer, whether or not you prefer the actual cards on the table or going through it this way. Any feedback is very much appreciated. Please comment, like, share and subscribe. It all really helps me out. You know what to do. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, happy gaming.